Good morning, and once again, welcome to the world as we see it. Today is January 15th, and it is the birth anniversary of one of our ancestors, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And today, there's going to be a lot of activities around the country, place maybe even around the world, talking about Dr. King. And there's going to be the rehashing or the replaying of his famous speech, this famous I Have a Dream speech that was done in Washington, D.C. in 1963 at on the occasion of the March on Washington. The problem is, brothers and sisters, that there's been a whitewashing of Dr. King. It is as though Dr. King was frozen in time on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial in 1963 when he gave that I Have a Dream speech. It is as though that's the only speech he's ever given. Now, I've been teaching high school since 2006. And every year, I ask my students, what do you know about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? And the few, you would be surprised how many of them know nothing about him, but the few who know something about him, I said, what do you know? Oh, he had a dream. He That's all they know. He had a dream. He gave this speech, I have a dream. And you see, then you turn the TV on and they'll mention something about Dr. King, and there'll be some type, a little snippet from that speech, either an audio snippet or they may even show a visual snippet from the march. And it's in black and white, and you see him standing there, and he was, I have a dream that one day, blah 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 blah, and that's all you get. That's all he's ever done. Well, those of us who know that Dr. King grew up. That Dr. King actually became more politically mature, more socially mature. As a matter of fact, he later on said, and I quote, I'm afraid I've led my people into a burning house." He was referring to this whole notion of um, bringing everyone together and getting rid of the separation of the races and so on. You want to integrate into America. And he came to realize that he said, I'm afraid I've led my people into a burning house. Right? Now, here's a, there's a speech that Dr. King made. Some of you may be familiar with it. Most of you, unfortunately, are not. The speech was made in 1967 in New York at the Riverside Baptist Church. And it was a speech where Dr. King talked about the Vietnam War, and he criticized America's actions in the Vietnam War. And many of us believe that that was the speech that drove the United States government to kill him. Oh, yeah, he was killed by the United States government. Some of you may believe me, some of you don't believe me. It doesn't matter. The facts are the facts. If I tell you the grass is green and you don't believe it's green, you think it's pink, that's okay. It's still green. Okay. The government killed Dr. King. And the reason was this speech. Now, if you've never heard that speech, I highly recommend that you go and listen to it. It's easy to find. Just go on YouTube and put in MLK or Dr. King, why oppose the Vietnam War, and boop, it'll pop up. Listen to it. It's about 56 minutes long. And I recommend that you listen to it more than once. Now, for those of you who have listened to it in the past, I recommend you listen to it again. Now, I want to talk about this speech, but I'm not going to play the whole speech because, as I said, it's 56 minutes long. It's too long. But I want to talk about some of the points that Dr. King made in that speech that are relevant today. It's as though he's watching what's going on today. Very prophetic statements that he made. Okay. Now, one of the first quotes that caught my attention when Dr. King said, a time comes when silence is betrayal. A time comes when silence is betrayal. When some type of injustice is taking place and you and I choose to be silent, that is an act of betrayal. That isn't not just betraying the people are who this action is being perpetrated against, but a betrayal of ourselves, a betrayal of the values that we claim we hold dear. Okay, when we say, "Oh, it's not up to me. I ain't got nothing to do with it. Stay out of it." You know what I'm saying? But Dr. King reminds us silence is betrayal. And I also said that injustice anywhere threatens justice everywhere. So if you think injustice over there doesn't affect you, well, he reminds us, and I agree with him, that injustice over there, if it goes on, if left unchecked, will affect us over here. Okay. Another quote from that speech. He talked about the fact that the war was an enemy of the poor. The Vietnam War was an enemy of the poor then, but today, how does that apply to today? Well, the United States in the past couple of years been involved in quite a few wars, but the most recent ones. Let's look at the war in the Ukraine and Russia. The United States has funneled billions of dollars to Ukraine, knowing very well that Ukraine had no chance of defeating Russia. They don't have the numbers, they don't have the weapons, and even the weapons that the United States and the rest of the Western cabal supplied them with, they didn't even know how to use it. But they keep sending money over there. This statement of Dr. King saying the war is the enemy of the poor is quite apparent today. Because how is it that this government, especially under the so-called Democratic leadership, Joe Biden, and they're all for the people, right? What people they're for, I have no idea. But we have people living on the streets all over the United States. In Los Angeles and other parts of California, they're blocks and blocks of tent cities, homeless people on the streets. If you go a couple blocks from the White House, matter of fact, if you're in Washington, D.C., and you drive by 20th and East Street, Northwest, which is just south of George Washington University, you will find a tent city there. And you can leave that tent city, and in 10 minutes, you will be standing in front of the White House. But there's no money to take care of the homeless. There's no money to feed the poor. There's no money to make sure that every American who, at least the Americans who pay taxes, have health care. There's no money to free people from the burden of school loans, No money for any of these things, but there's always money for war. There's always money for war. Because you see, this money doesn't really go to the war. This money is transferred from the taxpayers to the military complex. People like Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and these companies who are all involved in the defense industry. That's where the money goes. It's a transfer of wealth from the taxpayers to the defense industry. Okay, but if you ask the politicians, what about the homeless? Oh, there's no money for that. Right? So the war, as Dr. King said, the war in Vietnam was an enemy of the poor, and today the war in the Ukraine and the war in Palestine is again the enemy of the poor. So nothing has changed. What we see is the same poop, just a different toilet. That's it. Another quote that I get from Dr. King is, he stated unequivocally that the U.S. is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. That's what he said in 1967, that the U.S. is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. Here it is, 2024, and nothing has changed. The U.S. is still the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. Look around the world. Wherever there's violence, there's a U.S. Ukraine, there's a U.S. Palestine, there's a U.S. Right now, recently, you may have heard it, for those of you who follow what's going on with the genocidal actions against the Palestinian people perpetrated by Israel and supported by the United States. You may have heard that the Houthis, these are military people from Yemen, which is in the southern part of the Arabian Peninsula. The Houthis have been causing some problems for shippers, because you have to pass Yemen to get into the Red Sea, which is a shortcut to the Mediterranean Ocean and then to Europe. And the Houthis said, no, no, we're going to harass ships that are connected to Israel by one way or the other from going through here. Okay, so they have decided to create some problems for shipping, and now a lot of the shipping companies have to divert their ships around the Horn of Africa, and adding about maybe 8,000 nautical miles to their trip, and of course making it more expensive. The people say, why are you doing this? The Houthis have said very clearly, we will stop the very moment that Israel stops its brutal genocidal action against the Palestinians. We will stop harassing the ships. That's it. You stop doing what you're doing, we stop doing what we're doing. Now, the United States, which is supposed to have control or influence over Israel, somehow cannot get Israel to do the right thing, or they don't want Israel to do the right thing. So rather than say to Israel, hey, stop doing this, for many, many reasons, but this is one reason, you stop doing this, they will stop. No, they decide, you know what? We're going to go and we're going to send naval vessels to the Red Sea and to the Gulf of Aden, and we're now going to, along with the British, bomb Yemen. So now we got more violence. Okay, the Yemenis said stop the violence and we'll stop the harassment. The United States will respond with more violence. Dr. King's words continue to ring true. The United States of America is the greatest purveyor of violence in the world. The news may have you thinking negatively about Russia or China. I'm not carrying water for Russia or China for anybody. But while the news trying to get you to look at Russia and China, your own country, the United States of America, is doing everything it can to create mischief in the world. Again, what was happening in 1967 is happening today. Dr. King also mentioned the fact that more than 1 million Vietnamese were killed by the Americans, and mostly children. What do we see today? There are almost 3,000. Well, but they say it's 23,000 or so Palestinians who have been killed in 3 months by the Israelis, who are supported unconditionally by the United States, headed by the Biden administration. But they said there's another approximately 7,000 people who are missing, were buried under the rubble during the bombing. So 7,000 plus 23, we got but roughly 30,000 people. And more than 10,000 are children. The majority of the people killed in this brutal genocidal act have been women and children. Women and children. Just as Dr. King talked about in Vietnam, most of the people who were women and children being killed there, it continues today in 2024 that women and children are paying the price for America's brutality. Now you say, why, Baba Shaka, why you say America's brutality? Isn't it Israel's brutality? No. Israel cannot carry out his brutal action without the assistance and the aid of the United States. And can America stop it? Yes, they can. I remember, and if you go back and check, you will find them correct. back in 1982 when the Israelis chased the PLO into southern Lebanon and started creating a whole lot of violence in Lebanon. It didn't look good for the United States who was supporting them. And Ronald Reagan, some of you may not like him, some of you do. It doesn't matter. But Ronald Reagan made a phone call to the then Prime Minister of Israel, Menachem Begin. And he said, look here, Menachem, my boy, what you're doing is not looking good. And you're going to need to stop. And if you don't stop, I'm cutting off the money and the weapons. You know what happened? 20 minutes later, Menachem Begin announced a withdrawal of Israeli troops from southern Lebanon. 20 minutes later. Because Ronald Reagan said, cease and desist, or I will cease and desist when it comes to sending you money and weapons. Can Biden do the same thing? Absolutely can. Does he want to do the same thing? It appears he does not. Okay, so is this the fault of the United States government? I think it is. I don't know what you think, but you're free to think what you want to think. But I certainly think it's the fault of the United States government. Because if the Biden administration, the United States government cannot stop Israel from murdering women and children, then they really are useless. They're absolutely useless if they cannot influence people. You're sending them weapons and money. You're replacing all of the bombs that they're using up, but you have no control over them. You're either lying or you're useless. In either case, you're no good for the world. All right. Now, what does the Dr. King talk about? Dr. King reminded us that North Vietnam tried early in the so-called war to sue for peace. They made overtures to get a peace deal. This was rebuffed by the United States. And not just that, but President Johnson, Lyndon Baines Johnson, lied and claimed that this did not happen. Well, you know what? History always shines a light on certain things. So we know now that Dr. King was right and that LBJ or Johnson lied. Okay, they did not want peace. They wanted war, and they wanted to subjugate the Vietnamese people. How does that apply to today? Well, if in early 2022, Russia and the Ukraine had a peace deal. They were about to sign a peace deal. Yes, they were. Don't let CNN and MSNBC and ABC and the rest of them fool you. Go and do your own research. Russia and the Ukraine were about to sign a peace deal. And the Biden administration, along with a cabal of Western leaders, said no. Matter of fact, they even sent former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson to Ukraine to stop the deal. Boris Johnson was sent to say, look here, Zelensky, you don't sign that deal. You don't need to sign a deal because you can win. We will back you and you will win. You will defeat Russia. You'll be victorious. Don't sign the deal. And Zelensky, under pressure, did not sign the deal. That deal could have saved a lot of Ukrainian lives. Just 2 days ago, go and check it out. Just 2 days ago, it was reported that Vladimir Zelensky is now ordering the women to join the force. He's ran out of men. So now he wants to send the women into the meat grinder. Right? Why? He could have had, this war could have been stopped in early 2022. But no, Joe Biden didn't want to stop the war. And the rest of the cabal went along with him. Britain and the EU. Right? So what Dr. King was talking about in 1967 is happening over and over again. It's happening today. As I said before, same poop, different toilet. That's all. That's all. Dr. King talked about the U.S. talking peace while building up their military presence in Vietnam. So while they're talking peace, they're sending troops and weapons and stuff to Vietnam. Right? Doesn't that sound familiar? Biden and Blinken and Austin, the rest of them are talking about peace, and we're working behind the scenes to get this thing settled. But while they're doing all of that, or at least they said that's what they're doing, they're sending more money and more weapons to Israel so that Israel can continue its brutal genocidal attack on the Palestinian people. How is it that you can talk peace on this side of your face while supporting genocide on this side of your face and think that the world is going to believe you? No. The United States has isolated itself. Look at what's going on in the UN where the votes are concerned. The whole world is against what's happening to the Palestinian people. And apparently, all the smart people, or the smartest people in the world, are in Washington. So when the whole world says this is genocide, the smart people in Washington says, oh no, the rest of the world is stupid. There's no genocide, right? When South Africa first brought its case against Israel at the ICJ, the International Court of Justice in The Hague, 84 84 pages of evidence. And one reporter at the White House asked about this. And the White House mouthpiece, I can't remember his name, he's a former admiral or something like that. His response was, this action, the South African action is without merit. There's nothing to it. And it ended there. No other reporter says, wait a minute now, wait a minute. Are you telling us in this room here that there's no merit, nothing of merit in 84 pages? That's it. So the reporters are trained to let them off the hook, to ask the easy questions and let them off the hook. And these fools are trained to just push things to the side that they don't like and think the rest of the world is going to go along with it. Well, guess what? No, it's not happening. There are many, many countries who have fallen in line behind South Africa to support the South Africa's actions at The Hague. And we're waiting. It's going to, in a couple of days, a decision will come down. We'll see what happens. Now, I am pretty sure. I can't prove it. So I will let you know. That's my disclaimer. I can't prove it. But I'm pretty sure that as I'm speaking right now, the Biden administration is working feverishly behind the scenes to try to influence the decision of the ICJ. Because that's what they do. That's what they do. They follow the same script over and over again. That's what they do. Okay, so they're working for. But we'll see. We'll wait and see what the ICJ does or what it says. As for me, if the ICJ cannot see what's going on, what the rest of us can see, and they have 84 pages and 3 hours, almost 4 hours of testimony, including the words of Benjamin Netanyahu and other leaders of Israel as to the intent of genocide. If they can't see that and they vote against it, then it may be time for the rest of the world, or at least the global South, to move away from the UN and the ICJ, because it will obviously be proven to be useless. Okay. Just one more. I know we've been talking for a while, but this is one more quote by our ancestor, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and then I'm gone. He said, the image of America will never again be the image of revolution, freedom, and democracy, but rather the image of violence and militarism. The image of America will never again be the image of revolution, freedom, and democracy, but rather the image of violence and militarism. Even after the Vietnam War, some people still try to hold on to the old image of America as one of revolution, freedom, and democracy. But Here we are in 2024, and the world is waking up. Even people right here in the United States are waking up. Just yesterday, today is the 14th of January. Yesterday, the 13th of January, it was estimated well over 400,000 people took to the streets of Washington, D.C. to protest the genocide that's taking place in Palestine and the American unconditional support for genocide. It is described as the biggest pro Palestinian demonstration in Washington, D.C. in the history of America. Now, they said 400,000. It's probably more than that because around here, they tend to try to bring the numbers down, to underreport the numbers when it comes to something like this. So if they say 400,000, I'm thinking probably 500,000, 500,000 people. Okay. So here we are, folks. We're going to celebrate Dr. King tomorrow, as well we should. But as they play the I Have a Dream speech over and over again and try to convince us that that's all Dr. King was about, remember, Dr. King was more than that, much, much more than that. And the speech, Why I Oppose the Vietnam War, can be accessed very easily on YouTube. I recommend that not only you should watch it, but watch it with others and then discuss it. Okay? So until next time, this is the world as we see it. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey. I hope that you enjoy the content that we give you. If you do not, then thank you at least for watching. If you do, then go ahead and share this with others who you think may enjoy. Until next time, Kwaheri, Assalamu alaikum.